Hello, and welcome back. We're the Lorcana Twins, and now with the full set 6 having been revealed and released onto the app, we thought it'd be a good time to take a look at some of our favorite Enchanteds from every set, including set 6. So we are going to do that today.
Yes, it's been quite a magical journey so far. Every set brings a lot of fantastic new art pieces and very fun playable cards as well. And so today we're going to kind of do a deep dive on those, just go over each of us picked one of our favorite cards, Enchanteds from sets 1 through 6.
And then we also picked one of our favorite cards to play, whether it be competitive or just in index we've tried out and what have you. And that just happened to be Enchanted as well. So we will kick it off here. This is starting with set 1. For my favorite, or definitely one of them here, she is. It is Belle, strange but special. 4 cost inkable, 2/4. I love this card. It's just very fun to play as well. But for this one, I picked it mainly for the art and the overall vibe of the card. Just a very cool piece. And back in set 1, ramp wasn't as prevalent. There were some options, but not as many as there are now. But just also the fact that she could be worth 5 lore if you had 10 or more ink. Like, that was pretty crazy, and that was the most, worth the most lore of any card back then. So I thought that was a really fun piece as well. And here you get to see her in a very classic form in her ball gown, but also in this new library that looks, very interesting and fits well with her character. And just a really cool piece. I love how it's really full art and the image is going down into the text box. And yeah, it was our first set. We didn't even know Enchanteds were coming until the day that was kind of, pre-released at Gen Con. And so that was an exciting treat as well. And even to this day, this card sees some play, especially with Lucky Dime. There's a lot of synergy there. And I just think, it's a fun alternate ramp option as well.
Really is. To me, this is like classic Belle in her library. Love it. She's wearing her ball gown dress here. And it's just a really cool how the ladder's kind of curved. It just makes an interesting look to the card.
Yeah, so I just think this is, still a really special, amazing looking card. And what a great one to kick off set 1 with. And now we will take a look at what you chose.
I went with Aurora, Dreaming Guardian. She was, one of the main starter deck characters for set 1, but this artwork here is, of course, the Enchanted version, and I think there's something really interesting about how this one was drawn. It looks very stylized.
Yeah.
And, almost like two-dimensional, but also, it's got some 3D components there, so just think it looks really cool. Like, she's really tapped into her magical powers, and she's kind of channeling in this photo. And the castle in the background is very nicely silhouetted. So just everything about the visuals when I see this card, it really excited me for the game.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think when you open a starter deck and everyone's going to get the standard art for Aurora, it's really cool that a starter deck card had this Enchanted alternate art to pull for. So, and yeah, I think something about this, it is done in a very unique style. Really love that as well. It's a very cool pick. And now for playability, I went with Giant Fairy Tinkerbell. Love the art as well, but wow, this card, when it was revealed, I remember just thinking how fun this would be to play. It's got the Floodborn shift mechanic. You can get this out for 4 ink, and when it comes down, it deals 1 damage to everything. This was, an early look at what some AoE damage could be in this game. And then just her other ability too, that when she challenges and banishes a character, you get to deal 2 damage to another chosen character. Like, that seemed like a good way to deal with boards that are getting a little wide. And with this art as well, it's just such a fun take on Tinkerbell, because normally she's a fairy and very small in stature, but here she's big enough that she's holding the ship, the Jolly Roger, and that even looks really small. And she's messing around with those pirates on there that have given her some trouble. So really cool card. Love the art, love the playability, and how could I not pick this one?
Competitive wise, she was very strong back in set 1, and she's still very strong today and sees a ton of play. So great pick there.
And maybe I'm a little biased on the 2 I picked, because of all the ones I opened, those are the only 2 I opened for set 1 in terms of Enchanteds, but some good ones.
They're such winners. So.
And now, what did you go with?
For kind of the playability, competitive side of things, I went with Maui, Hero to All. He's been a staple of many Ruby decks ever since set 1. Just for being a 5 cost, able to rush in and do 6 damage to something is very impressive. And the reckless doesn't really matter so much because you just want to use this card kind of as a removal on a character basically. And usually he comes in and gets a trade and survives, and so it makes your opponent wonder like how they should best take him out. So yeah, he can really swing games and help clean up some pesky characters and help you win the board back. And I think the fact that he's really stood the test of time and is still being played pretty heavily in almost every Ruby deck is just a great reason why I think this is probably one of the most playable competitive enchantments from set 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think he will be around for a long time unless other characters come out with similar stat lines, but it's always, he doesn't quest for lore, but yeah, just being able to get 2 for 1 or maybe even 3 for 1 trades, he comes down and removes a character and your opponent has to wonder how they're going to remove him. I think it's just, a very valuable card, and, super cool to see, that he got an Enchanted.
And yeah, this is one of the ones I opened for set 1, so I also have a fond memory of that experience.
Mm-hmm. And now, set 2. So I went with Hercules for one of my favorite Enchanteds. Hercules has always been just one of my favorite Disney characters, one of my favorite Disney movies.
Same.
So when I saw he was getting an Enchanted, I just knew like that was definitely the one for me. And it's a really cool artwork as well. I love the look of the columns. He seems like he's up in the clouds and then kind of lightning punching a pillar like that. Just the art, it just looks very cool. And then he also has that Floodborn mechanic and resist +2, which has proven to be a very strong ability, especially on cards like, Cinderella Stout-Hearted, because she's got 5 willpower. It is a little less strong on this Hercules since he only has that 3. But it's still, if they don't have a strong enough character and they don't have direct removal, he can stick around and put in a lot of work. So, but yeah, very cool art as well. And just have always loved this movie and this character. So I went with Hercules.
I went with Snow White, Well-Wisher.
Classic.
Now, for me, like the art on this one is just really fantastic. I love how peaceful and serene it kind of feels, especially with all the forest animals kind of coming to her as she's singing next to the wishing well. So I think this just creates a really nice, fun, iconic kind of scenery from the movie Snow White.
Yeah, it looks like the sun's like filtering in through the trees.
And I also think it's a really fun card. Back in set 2, I tried a lot of decks like Amethyst Amber, where I would try to like pull characters back from the discard pile, and using this card was really fun, especially with Mufasa. This seemed to combo kind of well, because if he ever made her pop out, you could quest immediately and pull your Mufasa back. So I enjoyed that, but I think this is just classic Disney princess and done up in a very nice way here that just feels very peaceful. So.
And for playability, I went with Lady Tremaine. I think this was a very fun card to play and still is. I know I played her in one of the most recent set champs in a Mufasa deck. Just the ability to, make your opponent choose and banish one of their characters, especially if you get them down to one character left and then they don't really have a choice. Just very cool. And then the art on this as well, I think. She looks very cool, unique take on Lady Tremaine. She definitely looks like she means business. And yeah, I just think it's, on top of that, then once you've played her, you can quest for 2. And a lot of times if it's in Ruby Amethyst, you might bounce her back to hand, and then you get to replay her multiple times and banish multiple characters. So she gets a lot of work done and is a card that they definitely have to play around or, wonder if you have. And so I think very fun to play and very effective card. And the art is very cool. Again, they always knock it out of the park.
Yeah, you can tell that she knows how evil she is there. So. And then, of course, the victim of Lady Tremaine, we have Cinderella, Ballroom Sensation. And she is a 1-cost, 1/2, Inkable Singer 3, as we all know, I'm sure, because she's been really dominating the Amber Steel decks, the Steel Song in particular, ever since set 2. I mean, she just really elevated the power level, I think, of that deck. But yeah, so I picked this one for the playability because, like, ever since her release, she's just been kind of a staple in those types of lists. The Singer 3 lets you remove your opponent's characters as early as turn 2, just singing, very destructive steel songs usually with this card. And also, I will say, it is just visually a stunner as well. So I think there's definitely a reason this is probably like the most expensive Enchanted from set 2, and just it wins on all counts, I think. So
Yeah, gorgeous card. And set 3, I went with Morph for my overall.
He's so cute.
Kind of just one of the top tier Enchanteds. Yeah, I mean, just looking at this really makes me smile, I think. It's just, yeah, it's super cute. Up in the clouds, like in the crow's nest, that's very artfully done too. I just love the pastel kind of coloration of it, and it does really look like a piece of art or a watercolor painting or something like that. And yeah, and then the card itself is very fun. Just the opponent never really knowing what you might morph him into or shift on top of him. So yeah, very cool card, and I love the Treasure Planet, and that whole franchise, and I was very glad to see it. It made its way into the game right away in set 1, but just with one card. But set 3, I think they really got a lot more added from that franchise, so that was really cool to see.
And he's an alien, and
he is.
Seems
that
like
might be important soon.
Some alien synergies coming in set 6. So
yep, but yeah, I just love this card, and it definitely continues to be one of my favorite Enchanteds across all the sets so far. But yeah, so I went with Morph, and you went with?
I chose Chernobog, which happened to be also the Enchanted I opened first from set 3. So, but before that, I really wanted this one because just visually to see this kind of terrifying looking character at the top of the mountain, and
it's really cool.
The way the art's done up, I think it's really nice. He looks like he's made of stone, but also very much alive, and kind of the colors swirling around him bring it to life a little more. And then plus the cost of him, I believe he was probably the first 10 cost character in the game. I'm not 100% sure on that, but at least 10 cost uninkable.
I think so.
And huge stat line here as a 9/9 with 3 lore. And then yeah, just a very fun effect too. I know this card has seen a lot of play in decks that play a lot of characters. And so yeah, everything about this card just really, really spoke to me.
Yeah, I think it's a really unique and cool ability. I mean, being able to I know it says it costs 10, but to be able to play them maybe for free if you have a full discard pile, very cool. And then the 9/9 stat line with 3 lore, it's just one of the biggest in the game. So yeah, the opponent definitely gets scared to see that come down.
The Knight Goofy, that might have been set 2, not sure. That might have beat Chernobog out there as a 10 cost, but in terms of Enchanted, this is definitely the first one, and he is just quite imposing, and I'm a huge fan. I've had a lot of fun playing Chernobog. So.
All right, and then I went with Kita for the playability, especially in the Amber Emerald discard deck. This is a lot of fun to play. Just being able to play her, and then all the opposing characters and your own get -3 strength until the start of your next turn, which that didn't immediately come online as well as it did in set 4 when Under the Sea was released, which puts all your opponent's characters on the bottom of their deck if they have 2 strength or less. So playing Kita and then singing Under the Sea in the same turn is usually going to send your opponent's entire board to the bottom of the deck, and then you get to keep all your characters. And I mean, the game can really snowball from there. But just when I visually saw this card as well when it was revealed, I just knew again, really love. This is from Atlantis, and that was also a movie I've really liked. And it's not one of the more popular, well-known ones either, but I thought it was really neat to see her get such a cool treatment here. And yeah, the art's just stunning.
And this seemed like a really cool, iconic moment from the film. And so when we were kind of speculating what Enchanteds they might make, I did think Kita in this particular moment would be a really sweet choice.
And she usually has more of a
very happy to see they went with that.
More of a blue aesthetic in the film, so I was a little surprised at first to see it in amber, but I really like it. It fits the amber theme of protecting your characters. And that's another way you could maybe use her if you're playing an aggressive deck and you've got a lot of smaller characters out in play, and maybe you want to quest them and then play her so your opponent's characters have less strength and can't challenge them very effectively. But yeah, just a very cool card all around. Also has shift, so maybe you can shift on top of Akita and sing a whole new world if you're doing Amber Steel with her. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and maybe she'll see more play going forward here. But she's been a staple in that Amber Emerald deck.
For my competitive playability card from set 3, I went with And Then Along Came Zeus. This card has seen a lot of play, especially in Amber Steel Song type decks. But other decks have made good use of this before in the past too, like Sapphire Steel, Emerald Steel. So just always good to have a nice 5 damage action. That can really remove a lot of characters in the game, and the fact that it's singable, helps you kind of make additional tempo plays after, not really spending any ink for this. So, and being a Hercules fan, I love that this is from that movie, and it's a very epic action shot here with Zeus hurling that thunderbolt and kind of trapping the Titans down below. So
yeah, it's almost like you're looking from the Titans' perspective as they're, seeing this lightning bolt thundering down toward them, and yeah, it is pretty epic.
Yeah, this is one I just knew I kind of really had to have, so I did go pick up a copy of this because,
It is a staple in a lot of steel decks for sure, and I think it will continue to be. So,
yeah, I think it removes a lot of threats that you need to kind of be mindful of, and so maybe it'll be pretty popular in set 6.
And here in set 4, I went with Ursula for one of my favorites. When I saw this one visually, I was just really loving what I was seeing, and it looks like kind of a warm picture for her, even though she's in the deep, dark, cold ocean. But just with the glowing trident and the crown that she's finally acquired, and she's got that locket around her neck too. And then it's really working in a lot of that amethyst color. But yeah, really cool. And then as well as the playability, I mean, she got to try her out in a recent set championship when I played Emerald Amethyst, and shifting her on top of the 2-drop Ursula and then questing for 3 and then getting to exert one of your opponent's characters, which can allow you to set up some other challenges with your other characters you already have in play, is really nice. And then against decks that really want to sing songs like Steel Song, her ability that says other characters can exert to sing songs came in really big in those types of matchups. So really fun, powerful quester, just a powerful card all around, and I love the art. And she's just such a classic character. And I know, in this set, the set championship promo card was a different art of Ursula.
I love that one too.
But I thought it was really cool that they still went with this one. And,
she looks really at ease now that she has that crown. So you can tell how much power kind of makes her comfortable.
And you went with?
I went with Second Star to the Right. I think visually this card just really kind of jumped out at me to see, Peter and the Darlings kind of flying in front of the big clock there. And to see a lot of I believe the set 4 ones were kind of dark, had dark backgrounds. And this one does too, but the colors from the clock and the light is really illuminating the art here. And it's really a cool contrast, I think, to see them flying in front of this lit up image here. So really fun. I think this card has some interesting playability, kind of in some more decks geared more towards fun, I guess you could say. And at some point, who knows, this might really make it into the meta. For now, it might be a little expensive, but at that 10 cost, but you can sing it together, so there's some implications there.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun new mechanic that this set introduced, and just the ability right here to draw 5 cards or force your opponent to draw 5 if you were trying to mill them. That might be a little more prevalent going forward now with set 6. It looks like there's some mill things coming.
Yeah, I'm thinking of trying a mill deck in set 6 kind of for fun, and I think this would be a good thing to throw in there.
Otherwise, you're most likely wanting to draw the 5 cards yourself. But yeah, and I love the Peter Pan franchise as well, and this is just a very cool, very artful rendition of a scene from the film. And next up, for playability, I went with Diablo. Now, I hadn't played too much of Diablo until very recently when the Emerald Steel discard deck started to do very well on the competitive scene. And so I tried it at a couple set championships, and that was a lot of fun because, I had these unused Diablos sitting around. And yeah, just the ability to, if you can protect him, just kind of paves the way to draw a card or more every turn on your opponent's turn, can really get you a lot of options in your hand. And the evasive ability he has is also very frustrating for the opponent to deal with if their deck's just not equipped for that. And then also he has an interesting shift mechanic that's a lot of fun, and it makes you make some decisions like which action card in my hand should I discard to shift him up, because maybe you have a couple, but maybe you want him to sing one of your action cards if it's a song. And then it also makes you have to kind of play where you don't want to ink an action that you might need to discard to shift him with. So it can create some limitations, but when you get him to line up and shift him and have him protected, he can kind of run away with the game. So a lot of fun to play if it's on your side and it's going well. And yeah, the art too, very fun. It's very blown up, big image of Diablo, and
I love
he
the
looks
light
very
kind
excited.
of coming off of his tail feathers.
I love how bright and like glowing green that it is, which contrasts very well against the darker background. So, and it's cool because he's a sidekick to Maleficent, but he's not the most popular or famous character ever from the film. So I think it's really cool that he got such a feature, and he's turned out to be a very powerful card.
Yes, and he's definitely been the king of Steel Emerald, I would say. But now Sisu, she seems to be kind of the queen of Ruby Sapphire, or at least was for quite a while here. Just very powerful card for playability. Really makes some decks just kind of crumble to this once it comes out if they're only playing some low strength characters. So I know Ruby Sapphire has been very popular recently as well, and Sisu usually finds a place in that deck. This was the only Enchanted I opened from set 4 as well, so that was kind of fun. I haven't always gravitated towards like the really control style decks, but just based on how popular this has been in the meta, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to highlight it here. And it's a nice shift card, cost 6, but in Ruby Sapphire you can usually ramp up your ink pretty fast, so you can probably get this out before turn 6 if you set it up right. And yeah, just a powerful removal effect. And sometimes once this comes down, the game can just kind of end from there if your opponent has kind of spent out a lot of their hand. And so it's seen a lot of play, and I think it will continue to do so.
Yeah, I think the fact that it comes down removes potentially a lot of characters, and then quest for 3 going forward until your opponent can deal with it.
That can kind of catch you up in lore, because you're probably not questing much early if you're playing this kind of card in your deck, but once you deal with your opponent's board, it's nice to be able to kind of get a lot of lore each turn that this stays in play.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it paired a lot with cards like Ice Block to reduce the strength of opposing characters so that it can actually banish things that have more than that have more than 2 base strength. And then I also got to play this recently in a set champ when I played a Mufasa deck, and Mufasa did summon this at one point, so that was pretty cool. It's definitely a good hit off of Mufasa, but yeah, very cool card. And next we have set 5. So I went with Scar overall. Again, visually, I think this one is pretty striking. There's a lot of that electric lime green in the background, which is cool. It reminds me of some of the smoke or whatever that would rise out of the ground in his lair. And then you can see the chalk or the kind of painted version of Simba as a child on the back wall there, which is cool. And then he's sitting in on top of a rock, and it's interesting. It's like all those colors, it's rushing around him, and he just seems very comfortable and at ease on his perch, and like he's pretty confident in whatever scheme he's cooking up. But
yeah, it looks like he's kind of slashed through the photo of the image of Simba there with his claws. So
yeah, I just thought he's such a classic villain, and it was really cool to see him get such a nice looking Enchanted in this set. And I really gotta say, I love the style of the set 5 Enchanteds. Like, they're very colorful too, yeah. And just I don't know. It's probably been one of my favorite sets for Enchanted so far. I like how every set seems to have its own unique identity for that, and set 4, you could kind of see that, and especially with set 5, we're going to see that here too with a lot of these colorful ones. And then set 6 as well has a unique spin, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Then for my set 5 pick, I went with Robin Hood Sharpshooter. Everything about this card to me screams like it's a big celebration. He's just having fun. Looks like there's some nice lights behind him. Probably a big party down there after, at the end of set 4 after Ursula was defeated. Now they're celebrating for it. So it looks like he's just kind of having fun with his archery skills and kind of putting those to good use there. And the colors, to me, the red is really striking, and the green as well is a nice contrast from the rest of the background. And I've also had a lot of fun playing this card. It's not always like the most competitive option, but especially in multiplayer, I've found this to be pretty fun. And just questing, and you never know what you're going to get off the top. It can really impact the board state in a fun way. I like to play it in multiplayer, a lot of cards like Pack Tactics or things that might get you free lore while you're questing at the same time.
Pirate's Life
as well. So it's been a fun card to play around with, and visually, I think it hits all the marks.
Oh yeah, very cool card. And I went with Naveen for playability, Prince Naveen ukulele player. I knew when I saw this card too, I thought this was incredible. I love the art too, the big moon or the sun up there in the corner, and then people dance in the background while he plays, and then on top of that, the effect, he's got the singer 6, and on play, you can play a song which costs 6 or less for free. Now, Steel Song's been a deck we both love playing, like since, I guess, set 1, but, more so in the more recent sets, and I would say he just added a really nice new way to get around the problem sometimes where if you don't have a singer 5 in play, because they know, like, oh, they better remove that before you sing some of your powerful songs. Now you can just play him out of your hand and cast it instantly. So, maybe you're stuck with a whole new world left in your hand, but at least you can get them both out and get a fresh hand instead of having to wait a turn and risk maybe your song being stolen or your opponent again removing your Naveen before he can sing. So I just think it was such a powerful addition to Steel's Song, and I'm sure he'll be utilized in other decks too going forward, especially as Definitely. More strong 6-cost songs are released, or 5-cost songs. Anything 4 or above, you're still getting that on play effect. So, and then the 2 lore that he can quest for as well is not to be dismissed. So I think this is just such a fun card and a very powerful card when it's used well. So that's Prince Naveen.
And I went with Clarabelle, Light on Her Hooves. So this is, a nice emerald staple from set 5, where I think this gave a lot of power to decks maybe that didn't have a lot of draw potential before. Mm-hmm. So some decks that really didn't exist before set 5, suddenly they seemed more playable because, shifting out Clarabelle on turn 5 and then refilling your hand can really give you, a lot of pressure to continue, putting your opponent in a bind every turn as you just continue to dump your hand out again and draw up to their hand size. So I think, and she's been a lot of fun in like Emerald Amethyst. I know Emerald Sapphire has tried her a lot this set, or in set 5, yeah. So I think just one of the real kind of surprise cards that maybe everyone wasn't expecting right away was going to be as good as it was, but it's really proven time and again that this card has a huge impact on the competitive scene, and you really need to answer this card, otherwise your opponent can just kind of run away with the game. So
yeah, and her 5/6 stallion is hard to deal with, and you mentioned the Sapphire Emerald, and I know if you're ramping really fast and maybe you have a quill out and you're inking multiple cards per turn, you can easily run yourself out of cards and then play her and draw a bunch, and now you're just going to be able to play multiple cards in a turn compared to your opponent and match them in the resources. So that is very powerful indeed.
Yeah, so she's done a lot of work in set 5, and I think she'll still see a lot of play going forward.
Absolutely. And now set 6. So for one of my chase cards, I went with Baymax. I think just looking at this card visually, I love it. It's especially the way he's, kind of the focal point and then outlined in that sapphire color, but then with the butterfly that's with the white wings there, it's really popping against the more, the brown golds type of background. Really cool there, and it's just capturing Baymax in a very calm, peaceful look to him, which is kind of how he initially starts out in the film before Hero starts, tinkering with his settings when he wants him to get a little more aggressive. And then I like how they've worked in different parts of the movie into this. So you can see he's offering up a lollipop or a popsicle toward the right of the card, and then you can see his health chip that's kind of got his programming in it up toward the upper right, and then upper left you can kind of see his how are you feeling chart that he displays to his patients when he's giving them help. But yeah, he is just looking very peaceful, and I love that version of Baymax and the way he's really popping on this card. And so yeah, I also just recently watched this a couple weeks ago for the second time, and just gorgeous movie too. A lot of good messages in there, and a fun one at that. So yeah, I'm very excited.
That's a good pick.
I would not be upset to pull this in a pack. I'd be very happy.
Yeah, and Big Hero 6 is really heavily prevalent, I think, in set 6, mm-hmm. and I think this is a great way to showcase that.
Yeah, I was hoping he'd get an Enchanted. And I'm not surprised, but yeah, it's cool that he's getting one. And now
I went with Yzma, Conniving Chemist, as my kind of chase Enchanted, I guess, from set 6. I think she's going to be really fun to play because I think the effect is actually pretty strong. Card draw always seems to be strong.
Definitely.
And this might support, a couple different strategies, whether you're playing a really aggressive deck that kind of gets rid of your hand and then uses her to draw 3 more to, keep putting pressure on your opponent, or even just as an insurance policy against discard decks, if they're not removing your board very well or can't remove this, but maybe you don't have much of a hand left, but then you can kind of refill it. So
on your own turn before they can get at the cards.
Yeah, so I think she just offers something that a lot of decks appreciate, which is having more cards in your hand eventually. And besides that, I also really love the visuals of this card. Just the pose, she's looking over her shoulder, like she knows she's up to no good with her collection of poisons there. And one of them has a picture of a llama on the side there, I believe. So a little nod to Cusco maybe. And yeah, just everything about this card. I think it's really fun. So I'm hoping to open this one when set 6 comes out.
Yeah, I think it's cool how for this set of enchantments, they really seem to be working in other, smaller elements on the side of the card to represent things from the films they're from, not just the main character. But yeah, really cool looking card, and I think a powerful effect as well. And for playability, I went for Maleficent's Staff. I love the look of this as well, but I'm very excited to just build a deck around this concept of bouncing, either characters, items, or locations to the opponent's hand and then gaining lore at the same time. I know it might, cost you a little bit of tempo to play this. Like, let's say on turn 2, you're not really then playing a character to the board. You don't have to play it on turn 2, but whenever you try to weave this in, it might cost you a little tempo on the board. But then when you're playing so many things that can bounce things back to the opponent's hand, then that will help you regain that tempo and really drive it home and also advance toward your win condition at the same time. And some decks just really struggle to remove items. So if this sits on the board the whole time and benefits you while you just, try to get across the finish line and frustrate your opponent with a lot of bounce, like that could be a lot of fun.
And I think this card too, like if certain bounce decks are popular in the meta, you could just slot this in if you're playing Amethyst as a way to kind of counter some of those, so that they can go ahead and bounce their own things, but then you're going to get lore at the same time. So.
Right, like Ruby Amethyst loves to bounce things with Madam Mim Fox and Snake, and so yeah, they'll think twice, or have to think twice, I guess, before doing that, and it won't feel very good for them if they are staring across from this staff, especially because those colors can't really remove items yet, at least not in any efficient ways that see competitive play. So yeah, I think this could be a powerful card. It remains to be seen necessarily, but I think if nothing else, it'll be fun to build a very bounce heavy deck around this and just see how it does. So I'm excited, and again, I love the art too, and it's such fantastic. An iconic item from the film Sleeping Beauty. So and then I decided for competitively playable cards to go with Tiana, Restaurant Owner. I'm interested to see how popular she does become when the competitive meta kind of gets established, but at least at the outset, I think a lot of people will be excited to try this one, primarily in aggressive decks, because that's definitely what her effect seems to do, is trying to protect your characters so they can just keep questing. But yeah, I think it's really cool that Tiana's finally getting an Enchanted, because she's, I think, had cards sent set 2, and but it's not an Enchanted for her yet, and here she is. Naveen was last set, and so interesting to see her now getting the spotlight. And this is also some very cool art by Casey Robin. I believe she did the Cinderella Enchanted from set 2. We've got Louis in the background there playing trumpet, and then just a bunch of probably her restaurant staff there kind of dancing in the background. And but yeah, from a competitive standpoint, I think this will really frustrate some decks who maybe don't play a lot of removal and actually have to remove your characters through challenging. And then if their stats aren't good enough, then the -3 strength that she can kind of tax them with
they might need to take a turn off to just spend 3 and then kind of trade in and take her out. Otherwise, this problem could be compounded turn after turn. Especially, I think it might be really strong to drop some high health bodyguards on turn 4, so that when you finally do quest with this, you also just play a bodyguard, and then even if they pay 3, it's like maybe the stats they have, like they're gonna have to hit the bodyguard first. So if you can continue to get value out of Tiana, I think that might be an interesting strategy to try. So very excited to see how popular she might be. And
yes,
I would be very happy to open this one as well.
Oh, 100%. I think she has the potential to be very strong in the right deck. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that does eventually pan out, since she is uninkable.
And she obviously is banishable quite easily by certain
Brawl.
Ruby cards like Brawl,
The human Sisu 3-drop,
and any just like actions that do damage. There's nothing stopping you
so
from
I
playing
could
that.
see the risk of you quest out with everything and you hope like that she is able to not be banished, so that your other characters are also protected. But if they can efficiently like maybe use a brawl on her and then just value trade your other 2 characters, and now all of a sudden you've lost everything.
And if you
like,
play her
that
in
could be
steel
tough,
with Pete, you can kind of protect her maybe a little bit. But
absolutely,
Pete on turn 4, of course, he's not
not
quite
quite on
efficient
curve,
with your ink curve there.
but hey, you might be just about
But
winning
maybe
by
you'll
that
drop
point.
him in another aggressive 1-drop and then just quest out, and I'm sure that feels amazing. So I think this could really frustrate some decks and pose them a big challenge.
Yeah, and I think with the art and the character and just the powerful, but the potential high power level of the card, I think a lot of people are super excited for this Enchanted, and I am as well. And yeah, it'll be cool to see when set 6 rolls around very soon, what we end up opening and what everyone else in the community is opening.
And then as a fun honorable mention, we're gonna just talk a little bit about the next set championships card here.
Yes, this is an Enchanted promo.
Scar, Heartless Hunter. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm always curious, which card they're gonna pick, and this time we get a Ruby card, which is nice.
I was not expecting this one, but I love it. The moment I saw it, I'm like, this art is fantastic. And it's a very nice action shot.
Yeah, and it's quite different from the base set art, version. So, and I really like when it stands out just because of how different it is. And I think, the colors they used on this are a really nice contrast as well. But
it has been noticed that this card is supposed to be non-inkable, and it has the inkable symbol. So I am curious to see if, when these are actually given out at set championships, if it will have that inkable symbol or not. But I'm sure that will either be communicated, that just to honor how it is supposed to be non-inkable, or maybe it will have been reprinted. Not sure if it has been printed yet at all, so that'll be interesting to find out. But I love the art, and I'm sure like seeing this even wider when it's on a playmat, like I'm very curious to see how that looks. That'll be very cool.
Yes, that's definitely going to be something we're going to want to try to maybe win at some point. But
oh yeah, I don't know how many set champs we're going to have to go to, but it's definitely something that'd be nice to add to the collection. So yeah, very cool card here. And I love the coloration too. This is a Ruby card. There's a lot of green on the card, but then you see that Ruby strip that says Storyborn Villain, and then toward the bottom of the card in that text box, it's really got some Ruby shading as well. And then the strength and willpower symbols are also Ruby. So they work it in there so you can kind of know what you're looking at. But yeah, love the look of this card, and that'll be exciting to play for those.
This gets me excited for the next round of set championships.
And yeah, there's really, every set has some amazing enchantments. We could only highlight a couple each, but there were other ones that were right there with them in my book as well. Love the Surfer Stitch from set 1. That's so fun to play. Just so many cards. Elsa, we all know that set 1 Elsa is definitely a chase, and probably the most expensive enchanted to date, and I wonder how long that will continue, if it will always be, or if something will come and steal that spot someday. But
yeah, I'm always happy to get any Enchanted, and just to look at them, they're all visually amazing and something to be appreciated.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool rarity that they worked into the game, and they are very rare, so it feels really good to open one. And yeah, so with set 6 coming up, best of luck to all of you in opening any packs that you do, any events you do go to where you might get some as well. I think locally we'll probably end up doing a draft, if they have that the night of the event. And that's always fun, trying to draft new cards that you haven't played with yet. And when people open, maybe you open a double legendary pack and you have to pass one of them along, to the next person, it gets exciting. So
yeah, and the draft from set 3, I know my brother and I were both in the same draft pod, and we each opened an Enchanted during that
pretty
draft,
crazy.
and I did not expect it, so it was really fun. So I always love, the release parties kind of that our store does every new set, and I'm looking forward to next Friday for that.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll be back with one more video next week before the set comes out. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and happy questing.